All right, today we're diving into a really central figure in Islamic end times prophecy, the Dajjal. We're talking about a master deceiver whose trial is said to be literally the greatest test humanity will ever face. So, just to understand how serious this is, Islamic traditions, the Hadiths, say this isn't just a big deal, it's the biggest deal. The single greatest test humanity will ever go through. In fact, the warning is so severe, it's believed that every single prophet from the very beginning warned their people about this very figure. Okay, so if this is the biggest test we're ever going to face, you'd think there would be some clues, right? How are people supposed to identify this false messiah? Well, the sources are actually super specific, giving us physical descriptions and a really fascinating origin story.
So, according to multiple traditions, he's described as being physically flawed, which is a huge clue. I mean, it's a dead giveaway that he can't be divine, right? God is perfect. But the most powerful sign? The word kafir, which means disbeliever, is said to be written right there on his forehead. And get this, it's supposed to be readable by every single Muslim, whether they can read or not. It's like this undeniable spiritual mark of who he really is.
You know, this story is really famous, and what it does is it grounds the Dajjal's origin. It makes him feel less like a myth and more like a real physical being who is just waiting. He's currently chained up on some mysterious island, and those questions he asks, they're not just random chit-chat. He's basically checking off a prophetic to-do list, waiting for the signs that mean his time has finally come.
So, once he's finally unleashed, the sources say his deceptions are going to be backed by powers that just seem impossible. And that's what makes his trial so incredibly tough.
Now, this slow burn, this gradual escalation, that's the absolute key to his whole deception. I mean, why would he start like this? Simple. He builds a massive following by seeming like this really righteous, amazing guy before he drops the big one. It's this super calculated strategy to reel people in step by step so that when he finally makes his ultimate claim, it doesn't seem so crazy to the people who already follow him. So the texts say he'll have jinn, these supernatural beings in Islamic belief, and devils working for him. This lets him pull off stuff that looks like straight-up miracles to anyone who doesn't know better. He'll appear to bring your dead relatives back to life, but, and this is a big but, it's actually just devils taking their form, trying to convince you to believe in him. And imagine this, during a massive famine, he controls all the food. He literally pits your faith against your most basic human instinct to survive. It's a brutal test.
And this right here, this is the absolute core of his deception. Everything is flipped upside down. Just try to picture it. You're standing there, faced with two paths. One looks like a beautiful paradise with a cool river. The other looks like a raging fire. But believers are warned, you have to walk into the fire. That's the real paradise. It is the ultimate test of choosing faith over what your own eyes are screaming at you.
So you might be wondering, where does he get his army, his initial power base? Well, the prophecies are incredibly specific about this. They say his first followers will be 70,000 Jews from Isfahan, which is a city in modern-day Iran. Now, as you can imagine, that specific detail has been talked about and interpreted for centuries, but it's pointed to as the very beginning of his global movement.
Okay, so after hearing all that, you might think things seem pretty hopeless. But the prophecies don't just lay out the threat and leave it there. Not at all. The sources are also really clear on how the Dajjal will be confronted, and, importantly, how believers can protect themselves.
This is where the true Messiah comes in. Islamic prophecy says that Isa, the son of Maryam, who you might know from the Christian tradition as Jesus, will actually descend from the heavens. And the prophecy is so specific, it even names the spot, a white minaret in Damascus. His whole mission? To face the Dajjal and put an end to his deception for good.
So what are those practical steps for protection? The sources lay out a clear game plan. First, it's about knowledge. You have to remember his flaws, that he's one-eyed, that God is perfect. Second, it's about seeking physical safety in the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, which you won't be able to enter. And third, it's about spiritual armor, which you get from reciting specific parts of the Qur'an.
And that specific part of the Quran is a chapter called Soda al-Kaf, or the cave. It's absolutely central to this idea of protection. It tells these powerful stories about faith winning out against incredible trials. The Prophet Muhammad is said to have advised that if you memorize its first and last 10 verses, it'll give you protection from the Dajjal's fitna. And fitna is this word that means trial or temptation or just chaos. It's about strengthening your spirit against his powerful lie.
All right, so we've got all this incredible, fantastic imagery. A one-eyed man, a giant donkey, a mountain of bread. What does any of that mean for us today in the modern world? Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Some scholars don't take all these signs literally. Instead, they see them as powerful symbols, as metaphors for things we see all around us.
And this leads to some pretty fascinating modern interpretations. I mean, think about it. The Dajjal's donkey that can travel the whole world. Could that be a symbol for airplanes and high-speed trains? A shout that's heard by everyone on Earth. Does that sound a little like the internet and global mass media? And his mountain of bread, could that just be a metaphor for controlling the world's food supply and the entire global economy?
Even the timeline of his rule gets interpreted in these two different ways. Is it a literal 40 days where time itself gets all weird and distorted? Or could it be symbolic? Maybe those unusual days represent different eras of his influence. The first day being a long period where his power grows massively, and then it starts to fade in the later days or periods.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer on the Dajjal. But it leaves us with a really compelling thought, doesn't it? In our world, an age of digital deepfakes, of global misinformation campaigns, of artificial intelligence, what does a prophecy about the greatest deceiver really mean? These ancient warnings about a figure who flips reality on its head and pits what you believe against what you see, they seem more relevant than ever. Whether you take it literally or as a powerful symbol, the story of the Dajjal really holds up a mirror to our timeless human struggle between truth and deception.